Look who joined.
He's not supposed to be here.
Oh, okay. Well, Abby wants
He's
him.
wearing red too, though.
Abby wants him here. Oh, bye.
Sorry. Hi, guys. Welcome. Did you notice him?
Yeah.
I was like, what's that black thing?
He's chilling.
Okay. Hi, guys. Welcome to today's video. In today's video, I just wanted to share with everybody the story about Abby's heart surgery and like how it happened and what we went through because I want to bring awareness. Well, we want to bring awareness because to heart disease. Share our story, what happened, because there are babies who leave the hospital and they don't catch heart defects. So hopefully like our story will help somebody else out there just in case, and also share our story for anybody out there who has a little heart warrior, just so you guys know that you're not alone, because I know that it does feel lonely when you don't actually talk to people who have gone through this. So hopefully this will bring understanding to what we went through for other people who haven't gone through this, and then hopefully this will make you feel, if you have gone through this, it'll make you feel like you're not alone in this. All right, so let's start from the beginning. I guess you guys are joining us for the story. So on March 14th, I went into labor and Alex came home from work that night and we went to the hospital, and I could tell you what was going through my head that day. I remember like in a couple days, I'm gonna be walking through the door with my baby. Never in a million years did I think I wasn't gonna walk through the door with her, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm already crying. Excuse me, I'm gonna be crying already. Okay, so then on March 15th, Abby was born at 3:57 p.m. and she was a healthy baby, as we know, so they gave her right to me. So I had her from then until the next night on March 16th at like, we took like family pictures at like 4:00 p.m. Like we did it ourselves, and then what time, like 5:36?
Yeah.
The nurse was just like, oh, I'm gonna go weigh her. That's what she said, right? Mm-hmm. She's taking her to weigh her. So she took her from the room. Meanwhile, Alex was like, there's a freaking scale in the room, so that's not what she's doing. Anyway,
she was gone for an hour. Yeah,
she was gone for an hour. So it got to the point where we were like, well, something's wrong. So eventually the nurse came back into the ass. Girly. The nurse came back into the room and she was like, you guys might want to come with me. So we went in there and we thought what we saw then was bad, but we had no idea what we were really in store for. So that was hard to see.
She had one IV in her arm and then a breathing.
I don't think she had an IV in her arm.
She did.
She did? Yeah. I don't even like this. So then they were like saying all these things. The pediatrician came and they were like, well, she might just need blood. What else were they saying it might be?
Blood transfusion.
Her oxygen was in the 80s and it's really supposed to be in the high 90s to 100. So it was in the 80s. 60s. So that's how they knew.
60s.
No, it was in the 80s.
60 to 80s, those fluctuate.
Oh, okay. So that's how they knew something was wrong when they hooked her up to the pulse oximetry. Sorry, I'm not good with like the medical lingo. So when they hooked her up to that, they realized like her oxygen level was low. And then the pediatrician called another doctor to get an opinion from another hospital. He said, yes, send her there, because the hospital we were at, what was the...
That was a level 1.
Level NICU. 1, yeah. So they couldn't really help us, so...
She needed to go to level 3.
Yeah.
NICU.
So we got our stuff together. Meanwhile, I had a 4-3 tear, so I wasn't really supposed to be going anywhere.
And we were up for about 28 hours?
Yeah, we were already up for like 28 hours to begin with, and yeah, I had my tear, so I could barely walk, but I had to get my stuff together, and the people from the transportation ambulance came, and they loaded Abby up, put her in the ambulance, and I remember leaving the hospital. I could barely walk, but we were following them out the doors, and I remember getting in the car and following them to the next hospital, which was like, what, 30 minutes out.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then meanwhile, all this shit, COVID was happening. Like this was in March, and this was when things just started to shut down. So when we went to the second hospital, they wouldn't let us up to the NICU. The guard or security guard was just giving us a really hard time, and you were like, well, you don't understand, we don't know what's going on with our baby. Like, meanwhile, in our heads, we were just thinking like the worst, like, what if we lose her and you're not letting us go see her? And
so the administrator of the hospital had to tell him no, they're both going up, they have to see the doctor.
yeah, because the doctor wanted to see both of us, so we knew something was bad. And we met with the doctor. She let us in the room, and I just remember the look on her face. That will haunt me forever. She said the baby's sicker than we thought, and the look on her face, you like know something. Yeah. So then they brought us over to her, and she was hooked up to more things than the previous hospital. She had a breathing tube in her.
She was getting 100% oxygen from the machine, but it wasn't helping.
Yeah, it wasn't helping. But so we left for the night because there was nowhere for us to even sit in the hospital. They had like chairs in the lobby at the far away from the NICU, so you couldn't even stay anywhere near there. Meanwhile, I'm healing. I couldn't even sit in the chair. It was so painful. So Alex took me home, and we were planning to come back the next morning. So we got home, and we were sleeping, and we get a phone call. I remember getting woken up by the phone call, and I was next to him. He answered the phone, and they said that they needed to helicopter Abby from the hospital to level 3 NICU. They had to helicopter her to Children's Hospital of Philadelphia. And I remember like what was going through my head. I just ran over to my mom. I woke her up and I was hysterically crying because I thought that I was going to lose her, because when you hear your baby needs to get helicoptered somewhere, you know, like, shit's really bad. Yeah, so then he hung up. We thought she was going in the helicopter. I'm like hysterical. I could barely breathe. Like, I just didn't even want to be in my body anymore. Like, it was like, I don't even know. Like, I just wanted to like pass out at that point, because like the feeling that came over me. What's wrong? What's wrong?
No, she sees you crying.
Oh.
It's okay. And mind you, at that point, we were up for 40 hours.
Well, we went to sleep for a couple hours before the phone call. We literally left her. No, it was like 2 hours after. She was only at that other hospital, the second hospital, for like 2 hours, I think, before we got the phone call that she was going to get helicoptered. So then Alex hangs up the phone, and then how long after until you got the second phone call?
Half hour, let's say.
And it was like rainy, and it was a little bit foggy out. So they called and they said, we're not going to helicopter her because of the weather. So we need your consent to put her in the ambulance. And when they said that, they were like, well, we can't guarantee that she's going to make it from the ambulance to CHOP. Right, that's what they said. They were like, well, we can't guarantee that she's going to make it. But we're going to do our best, but we need your consent and everything.
Yeah, that's when it became real.
Yeah. And so we said that. And then we waited, and it was like a few hours passed, and I was just like a nervous freaking wreck. I'm like, why haven't they called and say that she got there? This is all in the middle of the night, mind you. Like, literally in the middle of the night. And eventually they called, and they were like, Abby's here. So after that, we got dressed, headed out to Philadelphia. Philadelphia's like an hour and a half away from where we are. Yeah. But because of COVID going on and they shut everything down, we were able to get out there in like an hour, because there was nobody on the road really.
Yeah, no traffic was the only good thing.
So from all the phone calls, I was literally traumatized from hearing phones ring. Like, I remember a commercial went off with an iPhone ringing, and my freaking heart stopped, because every time we would pick up the phone from a phone call, it would be like bad news. So I was traumatized from like the phones going off for a while. Okay, so now that brings us to St. Patty's Day, and we get to CHOP. They bring us over to Abby, and again, she's hooked up to way more wires. When did the whole PIC line, did they tell you about the PIC line that night, or those phone calls? Yeah, it was.
The PIC line was the next, because that's what they said, that when we got to CHOP, the next step is that all these veins they needed a central PIC line.
Yeah, so they put a PIC line in her knee, but that was the other phone calls that were happening in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
So those were happening, not in the middle of the night, those were in the early morning, right?
Yeah, that was early.
They called and they were like, we tried to put the PIC line in, we hit an artery.
They nicked an artery or something.
She ended up with a blood clot on one leg from them doing that. And then they tried to go in somewhere else until a specialist came to put the PICC line in on the other leg because they didn't want to risk it again. So they tried to put a central line in somewhere else until he got there. That didn't work. So we were getting all these phone calls before we actually got to the hospital. And eventually the guy that specialized in the PICC line came and he was able to get in the other leg.
Yeah.
But eventually we got to CHOP and Alex had to wheel me around in a wheelchair because I could not walk. I wanted to be on a mission to go see my baby, but it was just so bad down there that I just couldn't get to her. So he wheeled me to her, and so we went to CHOP. We got there, we saw Abby in her room hooked up to all 5 million, literally 5 million wires was hooked up to this little girl, and we didn't know what was going on with her. We had no idea what was happening at all. We didn't have a diagnosis until we talked to the doctors. 2 doctors came in to talk to us, and then when they talked to us, they told us it was her heart and she was going to need open heart surgery, and they explained what heart condition that she had. Total anomalous pulmonary venous return. And I'm going to just read you the definition because it'll explain it better than if I said something to explain it. So it's a birth defect of the heart in a baby where TAPVR, oxygen-rich blood, does not return from the lungs to the left atrium. Instead, the oxygen-rich blood returns to the right side of the heart. Here, oxygen-rich blood mixes with oxygen-poor blood. So that's why her oxygen was down. So they told us that she was going to need open heart surgery to repair it. Pretty much, they needed to make the switch and put the veins where they needed to go so that the oxygen was going to run to the lungs better from the heart.
Yeah, you never want to hear that.
No, you never want to hear that your child's heart's going to be operated on.
Yeah.
So then the next day we got to spend the whole day with Abby. We brought books, read to her, and the doctors told us that she was going to go in for surgery on Thursday. So me and Alex mentally prepared ourselves.
We got there, 5 or 6 hours early.
Yeah, because we wanted to spend time with her before she went into surgery. So we were spending time with her, and the doctors do rounds. Like, a bunch of the doctors come around the baby, and they're like shooting all these medical terms around and talking about the baby and stuff. So what would you say? Like, the doctor, because of the blood clot, they came over. Yeah, they caused that blood clot with the PICC line, and the doctor came over looking for what was he looking for?
So her pulse, her what was it? The pulse in her foot was like non-existent.
Yeah, they couldn't hear it really.
Yeah, so until that was going to jeopardize the surgery, so they said they think it's minutes before
they were supposed to take her away
for surgery. They thought it was in their best interest to not go through the surgery until another. At that point in time, they never gave us a date.
No, they were just like, we're not going to go through with it because we don't want to compromise her foot.
Yeah, so
and I just broke down because I'm thinking like, okay, because you're watching your little baby suffer until they go and get surgery to like help. That's going to help them fix them suffering because you're just sitting there watching them suffering. They're on a whole bunch of medicines.
Yeah.
So we had to wait it out. We had no idea when she was going to be able to get operated on. So days were passing by, but we would wake up very early in the morning, drive out to Philadelphia, stay there the entire day with Abby, leave at night, and we would repeat this cycle every single day until Abby came home. We were lucky enough to be an hour away so that we can get there and back because there is the options of the Ronald McDonald's house, but we were able to just go home, eat, sleep, and repeat. The whole day. We
also opted to give it to other families.
We didn't realize like CHOP has people coming from all around the country, everywhere. Like the baby next to her, she was sent from Atlanta.
Waiting for her heart.
Yeah, and the mom was there by herself while her husband was back in Atlanta with her other child, and she was there by herself. Like there's so many people's stories out there that you realize because she was on the CICU unit, so it's cardiac intensive care unit. And you just look around and that kind of makes you realize you're not alone in this. Yeah. Because
we got to share our story with a lot of like 16 other families I think were on the floor.
At the time that we were there.
You got to think everybody knows you're going through something similar.
Yeah, everybody's going through something.
Kind of helps you bond with every family.
Yeah, because when we were going through this, I did not want to go on my phone at all. I didn't want to go on social media. I didn't want to text people because, like, going on social media, you were realizing other people's lives were like going on and they were happy. A lot of people were having babies around us and they got to bring their babies home healthy. And it's not to say like you're not happy for them, but like our whole world stopped and other people's were going on around us. But I just wanted nothing. Chunky thighs. I just wanted nothing to do with anything. Like, I just could not bring myself to do anything. Like, I couldn't even eat. He had to force me to eat.
We only ate once every day.
He lost a lot of weight from this going on. The stress was like unbelievable.
Yeah.
Like, that's how I lost a lot of my baby weight, because of the stress. Like, I had to be forced to eat.
We ate the same thing, and then
we would make, my dad would go get us cold cuts and we would make sandwiches and bring them to the hospital.
And got a ritual too. Every time we got home, we would call the nurses.
Oh yeah.
We'd have to say the same code. I forget what I couldn't even.
95.8.
Sure.
Yeah. So every night when we would get home from the hospital, I would call. He would call, dial it, and then you'd have to give your last name. We would be like, Abigail So's parents, and then they'd be like, code 9858 it was, and they'd transfer you over to the nurse that was taking care of her. She had like one nurse taking care, like all the babies have one nurse when they're on the CICU unit that are like staring them. Yeah, God bless them all, that are staring at them and with them the whole time.
Yeah. And then when before we leave, we would call for an update.
Yeah, we were just calling all the time because, listen, if there was like a bed next to her, I would not have left her side. I could tell you that, because when me and Alex would pull up to the hospital, like when we would get closer, like we would like get our like energy back because we just wanted to be with her. And then leaving her every day was the hardest thing I've ever had to do. I never.
Yeah.
So any parents out there who have to leave their child, like, I feel you. Nobody should ever have to go through any of this. And there was a nurse there, and she was a saint. She made the experience like a little bit better, because Abby had, okay? Abby had like a little glass thing around her, like the top was open, but she had the glass thing around her. And for a few days, like, other nurses watched me stare through the glass at her. Like, I would be like this, like, through the glass. And she came over and she was like, I can put that down for you. So then I was actually, like, able to, like, kiss her, hold her hand. And she was a nurse that actually made me feel comfortable. Ooh.
We loved having her.
Yeah.
She was her nurse for a few days. We had the privilege of.
Yeah, she was the one that made me feel comfortable holding her, because for the first few days, I didn't want to hold Abby because of the PICC line. And I was just like, I don't want anything happening to that PICC line because of what happened to the other leg. So, but she made me feel comfortable, so I was able to hold Abby. She was just great all around the whole time.
Well, everyone.
But she just has a special place in my heart, that nurse.
Yeah.
She was great.
Well, she definitely helped us get through this hard.
She did. And then she also brought up, she was the nurse that brought up, when babies go through the heart surgery, they can pierce the baby's ears. So that's how Abby ended up getting her ears pierced.
You could thank her.
Yeah, you could thank Bev. Okay, so days are going by, we're doing our routine, and then...
Abby.
And then there was a time where we met with one of the doctors. Alex just went off, and he was like...
Because they prolonged it again. They said that...
Because of the clot, and... of everything.
Mind you, she was in apparently fit form for surgery, but you know,
because of the clot, she wasn't getting what she needed done.
Yeah,
but
nothing was working for the clot.
She needed her heart repair to fix the issue of her struggling with her oxygen. So the weekend rolls around, he's like going back and forth with the doctor, and then the next day we go to the hospital. So
then give us a date.
The next day, a doctor came over to us, and she said Abby's going to be going into surgery tomorrow, which would be March 23rd was when she got her surgery. So we had to mentally prepare ourselves again, because your child's going under. Like, not even just under, everything needs to be stopped. Their organs are going to be running from a machine so that they can work on their heart. So just imagine what's going through a parent's head when they know that all that has to happen for them to get operated on. I remember the drive over there. That's another thing. Every day when me and Alex would drive there, we would drive there in silence. Because there was just so much going on in our heads that...
Not a word to each other.
Not a word to each other. No
radio's
music
on.
playing. We just drove there. Oh, you lost your dolly.
It's out.
So
But
there's Minnie Mouse.
But that soon slowly changed. We started to get our spirits back.
After her surgeries, when we started to get our spirits back. So on March 23rd, she went in for her surgery. I remember walking through the hallway. You walk with them to a certain door when you can't walk with them anymore. And that feeling, I can't even.
The longest.
That was the longest walk. And the hardest thing, because you don't know what's going to happen after they go through the door. And meanwhile, all this, like, if I could switch places with her, I would in a heartbeat. Like, you wouldn't have to ask me twice. Like, it's so hard knowing that your little baby that was just born has to go through all of this. And there's nothing that you can do about it.
And then the wait after the surgery, waiting for that the dreaded phone call.
Waiting for the phone call.
Just to, whew.
Yeah. So the nurse called us and they put us in a room waiting for the surgeon, the one who did the heart surgery on Abby, will come and meet with the parents after. So we waited for him, and oh my god, waiting in that room.
Yeah. And then
That was something else, like.
Trying to see his face to read it before he says whatever he has to say.
But.
This guy was a straight shooter. He had no emotions. Hard to read him.
Yeah.
But he told us the best news. Everything was good. Everything went, to the best of his knowledge, everything is.
He told us what he did. He repaired.
Yeah.
Made the switch.
Yep.
So thank God for the surgeons and all the staff at CHOP that helped save Abby's life and saves all of the babies' lives there. Thank God for all the surgeons and nurses around the whole world that are out there saving babies' lives. And that they're able to do these things, right? Say thank God. Say we are forever grateful for them.
They're the real heroes.
They are the real heroes.
And
then there's other people like to ask, like, is she good forever? And I don't like talking about it. Like, I don't want to answer that question, but I'll just say it this one time only. She should be good for the rest of her life, but there's no 100%.
Yeah, that's why
That's why I just don't like to answer it. Like, I just don't like to put anything out there.
even till today, we still have to go to the.
Yeah, for the rest of Abby's life, once a year, she's going to have to go and see a cardiologist and get everything checked up on.
Yeah. You want to dance? Okay.
Okay, so then after the surgeon talked to us, we went back to see Abby, and I stood like a few feet away from her because I was just so scared to see her after what we heard from other parents. I was just like, I'm scared to see my child like that. So I stood a little bit back away from her until the nurse, she was like, come over and see her. She's like, look at her earrings, look at her. So I went over and I was like, and she had so many wires and everything hooked up, like even more now. Like this was the most we have ever seen her with the wires. And she had the big bandage right here.
Yeah.
But she was super tired, and we actually slept there that night because I did not want to leave Abby because they said those first, how many hours were crucial?
I don't remember how many hours, but just the first, that day.
I think the first 24 hours they said was crucial, like after the surgery, to see how things were going to go. And they said usually the babies will have a slump.
Yeah.
Right, the slump before they get.
Yeah, better. But luckily she never went through her slump.
Yeah, they said she did good all night. I went in the middle of the night. I went to visit her.
It's okay.
Because I wanted to see how she was doing.
Yeah.
Say I was doing good.
She likes to dance.
And then I remember seeing her the next day, and she smiled at me. And I'm like, this little baby just had open heart surgery, and she's smiling at me. She had her electric ponytail because they have to monitor their brain after being on bypass.
Yeah.
To make sure like the brain activity is good from like the organs and everything running from a machine to make sure everything's good. So she had her electric ponytail for what, 48 hours? They were reading her brain.
Yeah.
So Abby was in the CICU for a few more days, but she was getting better. Her oxygen levels were 100% after her surgery. And then after the CICU, they moved her over to the ICU? No. CCU.
I forget what this.
I think it was just the MCC is the cardiac care unit, right?
It's a step down.
It's the step down, like before you go home, getting ready to go home. So she was over there for a few days.
But that was no joke either.
No, that was no joke either.
Same procedure, calling, checking on Abby.
Same thing, calling, checking on Abby.
You know, watching how her recovery is going. A
Yeah.
little bit less hands-on though, which was pretty,
I didn't
scary.
like that though.
It was scary because they were.
The nurses had more babies than they did over at the CICU.
And they really kind of tested to see how.
But we only left her to go home, go to sleep, to eat, go to sleep.
Yeah.
And come back the very next day early in the morning because I wanted to be the one there to take care of her and be with her.
And they don't have a test, but they see if you can take, see how you do with her.
And they're seeing her too, how she's eating and stuff.
Which
a lot of hurt kids have to go home on a feeding tube, but Abby, she was doing really good and she didn't have to go home on the feeding tube. Ooh, okay. Yeah, so she didn't have to go home on the feeding tube, which was really good. We had to take certain classes before we got to take her home. You do CPR. Oh, also from her blood clot, we forgot to talk about this. From her blood clot, she needed, what was it called? Lovenox shot twice a day. For how many weeks did you have to do it?
I don't even want to know. I had a bucket full of needles.
Yeah.
How many times I had to do it?
Was it 6 weeks? I want to say
something
6 weeks. She had to get the Lovenox shot for the blood clot to. It was a blood thinner. So then again, you also have to be careful with her because she was on the blood thinner.
And other medicines.
And then she was on another medicine. What was the other one supposed to know?
Just a bunch of
There was another medicine that she went home on too because they didn't want fluid around her heart.
Yeah, because it made her pee a lot.
Yeah, it made her pee a lot.
But
so she went home on some medicine.
And as a parent, doing that needle thing was probably the worst 5 seconds of my life. Every time I had to do it.
Yeah, morning and then at night again.
Yeah. Come home from work. You say dada.
She says mama too. Okay, so then on March 31st, the happiest day of my whole life. Was it the happiest day of your whole life?
Yeah.
Literally the happiest day of my whole life. We got to bring Abby home.
That was the best car ride ever.
The best car ride ever.
Out to Disney.
Yes. Oh, and then the song that came out like during all of this was Better Days by OneRepublic, and that got us through a lot. Better Days by OneRepublic.
It really hit hard.
Yeah, because we were able to relate to that song in our own way, because better days did come.
So thank you.
Every day's a better day with you.
So thank you, OneRepublic.
Yeah. Yep. So I had a lot of PTSD from the whole experience, and I get like flashbacks from like little bits and pieces every day.
I'm trying to say.
Oh, I get flashbacks from things that happened, and also I always think about the parents who are at the hospital with their babies right now and going through it. Like my thoughts and prayers are always with them. Because we know what they are going through right now. So the first thing I purchased when Abby came home was the Owlet sock, and it tracks the heart rate and oxygen level. I'm always checking that to see that her oxygen level is good, and then I'm always watching her heart rate too. So that was a really good purchase. It's expensive, it's $300, but worth every penny. So if you can get that, get that.
Gives you peace of mind when she's
It does give you peace of mind, but I'm not going to lie, I still wake up a bunch of times during the night, and I stare at her to make sure that she's breathing, even though it's on. But I mean, go back and track her heart rate and her oxygen levels and make sure that's all good.
And tracks her sleep schedule.
Did we like go over everything good? Like in my head, I could like play this whole nightmare from the start to the end. Like I have a really bad memory. Like I have mommy brain now. But like that, I remember, like, that will forever haunt me. But Abby, thank God she won't remember any of this.
That's what they said too. They said
she won't remember this, but you guys will. And like, I kind of know that like every birthday for her, like, I'm going to remember this whole experience. Yeah. So, around this time, like around that time in March, we always want to like take Abby on vacation and try to make happy memories during that time. This little one deserves it. She went through a lot in her little beginning of life here, right? But she's so strong. These little heart warriors are strong, and they make you realize how resilient little babies are. Oh, and another thing that I think I should address that people ask, that when we went and met with the doctors when we first got to CHOP, I looked at the doctor and I said, like, how did this happen? Like, and I don't even know what I said. I just remember looking at him and he's like, I just have to ask you something. And then I think he was like, I think I know what you're gonna ask. Like, did you do something? And then I was just like, I was just hysterically crying. But he was like, this is just an anomaly. Like, this just happens to people. Like, we don't know why this happens.
Yeah.
And
it's nothing you could have done.
Because Alex can, like, attest to this. Like, during my whole pregnancy, I didn't eat anything. I didn't do anything I wasn't supposed to. I wouldn't eat no cold cuts. I wouldn't eat whatever I wasn't supposed to do. I was not doing it.
So everything you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
Routine checkups.
I think I was healthy.
Ate better than we've ever did.
Yeah.
Or I would say so. Everything.
I do. Right? I think that I hope that hospitals do the pulsimetry test on all babies. Yeah. If they're not doing that test, they need to do that test, because that's what's going to give away that there's something wrong with their heart problem, maybe. So that, and then if you do bring your baby home and they didn't do that test and you're noticing them breathing weird, I've heard babies, like, I'll be scrolling through TikTok and I hear other people's stories. Their baby's breathing weird and they took the baby to the hospital and they were like, oh, it's just a cold. No, you need to, like, be an advocate for your baby, because some doctors don't know what the hell they're talking about. Like, even our doctor, we were going to be discharged from the hospital the next day. Like, we know it. Until that nurse, thank God for her, that she noticed something with Abby, didn't like it, and she's the one that started the whole process of getting her hooked up to the test and noticing something was wrong. Or else we would have been one of those people that were discharged and had to have dealt with God knows what repercussions from bringing her home sick. We would have brought home a really sick baby. Not known it. Right? Yeah. So many horror stories like that. You just don't know. But after all of this, as a little family, we definitely want to be advocates for heart disease, for... What?
I show my shirt.
So as a little family, we really want to be advocates for heart disease and congenital heart disease.
Got it.
And we definitely want to do more in the future for this. Like, because Abby needed a lot of blood transfusions too, I want to, after all this is over, I want to go and donate blood.
Participate in any heart
walks. Yes.
You love Philly now.
Yes, we love Philly now.
Abby's Philly in the heart, but...
Yeah, she's Philly girl by heart now.
But Jersey girl.
But she's a Jersey girl too.
Oh, she wants to come to... Whoa. You want to come to Dad? Alright, come here.
Yeah, so I'm going to also leave links in case anybody wants to donate. Even a little bit, I'll just leave links down there. Here, love. Thanks. So I'm going to leave some links down below. If you guys want to donate to any of these causes, I'll leave CHOP down below. And people don't know this, but CHD is severely underfunded. And I think that needs to be changed. So we're going to advocate more about CHD. Another reason for this video, and bring her story out there.
Yeah, and if they haven't, they could watch her older video. Maybe we could bring light to this whole video and actually share some happy videos. Yeah. She's doing good. She got chunky thighs.
Yeah, she's doing very good. Abs. Yeah. She's a little sassy girl. I hope that I said everything I needed to.
And if there's any other families out there that need someone to listen,
Yeah, don't be scared to reach out to us, because I know that this can be lonely. Also, because of COVID going on, there was no visitors allowed in the hospital, so it was just me and Alex being each other's support system. Like, grandparents were supposed to watch from afar, and they were a lot of help to us. But that was very hard for them too, to watch everything from afar. Like, we were able to FaceTime so they could see her, but they didn't meet her until we were able to bring this little pumpkin home because of...
They got the FaceTimer.
Yeah. Yeah, because of COVID going on. This is just a really hard year for a lot of people. There's just so much bad in this year. Mm-hmm. I mean, you came out of this year, so that's good. I know this was a really long video. I try to keep my videos shorter because I know everybody's time is valuable, but thank you for... Abs wants to take a nap. Thank you for taking your time to watch this video and hear Abby's story of boy, you have...
Sorry.
Say thank you for watching my story and listening. Thank you. Say love you guys.
You love.
Alright, don't forget to check in the description box the links to donate if you want to donate anything. Say thanks, guys. Thank you. Say subscribe and follow us as a little family and watch me grow.
She's awkward. A lot of energy.